is Bart Baggett, and welcome to Section 6, How to Give a Great Verbal Analysis. Now, the next video is going to take you into a seminar where I am teaching a live audience some of the principles of how I give a great verbal analysis. So I'd like you to follow along the seminar, follow along in your manual, and then I'm going to come back here and take you through the last two exercises as well. Enjoy. If you want to return to your manual, this is the art of the verbal analysis. Here's the problem. Seeing a major health trait that you see in handwriting, and you want to avoid being insulting. Does anybody have this problem? You see something really bad, you see a person's handwriting, you know they're a disaster, you know they're a mess, and yet you have to do an analysis of them. So one of the things to do is to be kinder. This is the more gentle, kinder Bart. When I was 20, I probably wasn't as gentle and kind. I don't know if my handwriting has gotten more bouncy, but I've had a little bit more compassion. So essentially, the secret to being kinder, more compassionate, is to do the same analysis, but ask a different question of yourself before you open your mouth. Does anyone realize you ask questions or you talk to yourself all the time? Yeah. In 1901, they would call you crazy. Wait, doctor, I hear voices in my head. Well, we better lock you up and drill your head because there's something wrong with you. We all hear voices in our head. Sometimes it's our own voice. Sometimes it's our nagging mother's voice, our mother-in-law, our dad. There's a lot of voices. If you can identify those voices, you can sometimes cure a lot of mental diseases without any medicine. But here's what we're going to do. We're actually going to intentionally have you ask a question. And that question will derive the correct answer. So using the same principle, if we ask ourselves certain questions about the handwriting, you're more likely to find the answer. And if you don't ask the question, you may not find the answer. And so one of the questions that I think is very important for understanding a human being is to understand the root cause. Why do they behave the way they do? Like, what's the reasons? Because if you understand the reasons, you're not as judgmental. We talk about the girl that stayed out until 10:30 and her dad ended up killing her. You know, you would look at her handwriting and you would want to know the reason she lies. You would want to know the reason she's scared or withdrawn. And if you understand the reasons, you're going to be very compassionate to that girl, regardless of what happened is a fictitious example. So you have compassion. When you have compassion, it's easier to help them. When you're sitting across the table doing therapy or coaching with somebody, if you're compassionate and you care, they're probably going to be more likely to follow your suggestions. They're going to come back a second and third time. They consider you a friend. One of the challenges that a lot of therapists have is they become emotionally attached to their patients. In fact, I think it's reversed. The patient becomes emotionally attached to the therapist. So part of having empathy and compassion is being able to create a rapport. Okay? One of the ways you find the root cause is you ask the question, well, what would cause a person to have these fears, have these defenses? You know, in the basic course, and if you listen to my lectures, it's always playful, especially with people we don't know, to be judgmental, to say he's a mess, to say he's got to go to hell K. And it's fun, and it's funny. But it's not funny if they're standing right there. You know, like we can talk about Franklin, and you probably had a lot of odd and interesting comments, right? Somebody probably said something rude, like he's stuck up, he's an arrogant jerk, but when you meet him, all of a sudden that doesn't seem as funny, right? It's like, wow, he's a real human being, he really cares, he really believes that the world should know that there's aliens, and he's really passionate about it. So when you meet him, you know, all of a sudden you have this really empathy and sympathy, and you connect with them. So it's easy to be uncompassionate when they're just a piece of paper. When they're with you, standing there, it's a little bit easier to be sympathetic. So what we're going to do in today's lesson, we're talking about quick description, metaphor, timeline and past events, the idea that people need to survive, and a verbal exercise drill. Okay? So let's hit those one at a time. The verbal exercise drills when you guys are going to help with each other. I'm going to be a little brief on this because I could spend hours. I took a class, actually I think I took a class by Tad James, it was short. But everybody has a structure of time. There's a past, there's a future, there's a now. And in your mind, you store it in a certain way. It's behind you, it's in front of you, it's beside you. So even your clients, they have a perception of past. If I show up in a brand new Scorpio, which for those of you watching at home is a very fancy SUV, right? Who makes Scorpio, do you know? Mahindra. It basically looks like a Range Rover, but a little bit smaller. And I show up in the Scorpio, and I've got 2 flat tires, and I have the entire right side of the car is scratched and dented, and there's a bird hanging, like, you know, out the door, and some leaves and stuff. What happened? I had an accident, right? Are you sure?
Yes.
But how do you know? You didn't see the past. You know. He's so confident you had an accident. Was the car moving?
Yes.
Well, maybe it was just sitting there.
If it's Hollywood, no.
If it's in Hollywood, the car's not moving. It's a fake accident. That's a very good answer. I almost want to give you something for that.